Corey Hollister of the American Cannabis Company sits down while we were in the field and takes us through exactly what happened for him to conceive of the American Cannabis Company, along with his partner. Takes us through what these guys are doing and where they're going. Okay, so the way that I'll put this is we're with Corey Hollister.
Hello, how are we doing today?
And we're in the old ACC headquarters.
That's correct. We will be moving as of August 1st here, so getting our final days on this spot.
All right, so we're here in Denver. Corey, you are not a Denver guy.
I am not. I'm originally a Boston boy and moved out here in 2007, so I have two children that are Colorado natives, but can't claim it myself.
Okay, fair enough. How old are the kids?
I got a 6- and 5-year-old boys, so high energy in my household.
That's both boys.
Yes, both boys. So, Yep. You get home, you better be prepared for a little bit of parkour, some time on the trampoline, some wrestling time, and then maybe you'll get a little downtime.
So you're this regular guy, right? And you've got a button-down shirt on, and you literally have khakis on.
I do. I come from advertising and a corporate environment, so not unnatural for me to wear business attire, and that's how I like to roll.
And you're an East Coast guy, so you've got the thick rimmed black glasses. There's a hint of green.
A little bit, you got to hold not the full metrosexual that I might have been in my advertising days, but still a little style in there.
All right, so then let's go back to Boston. Let's make sure we understand, the upbringing. I would imagine that the Red Sox are a very important thing to you.
Always. So when you're in Boston, Red Sox, Patriots, we'll get a lot of hate on the Patriots right now, but still lots of love for them, Celtics, Bruins, and great time and place to grow up, and grew up mainly in Wellesley, which is just about 15 minutes outside of Boston, and went to school in Vermont, and came back down to Boston after college and made my way into the professional environment, got my start in telecom, did some work in the .com during that kind of boom, and then really found my place in advertising and did a long run in advertising.
All right, so that's why you consider yourself an advertising guy. In Wesley, young Corey, prepubescent Corey, very, I would imagine the Patriots weren't good yet, and the Red Sox weren't good yet. The Bruins weren't good yet. No one was good. The Celtics, it was right after Larry Bird, right, for you?
We had, 85, 86 was a traumatic, span right there. You had a lot of tough losses, but the Celtics were kind of still hanging in there. I remember a few traumas of the Bears game there in 85. That one hurt, and but just a great place to grow up, and had a lot of fun there. And Boston's a great city to get to go and enjoy all kinds of offerings, from the arts to sports to good food. So really a nice place to be raised and grow up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a great city, and me, being a New Yorker but a Mets fan, I can completely and totally appreciate Boston.
There you go. We don't have the Yankee issue to overcome.
No, not at all. Everything's fine. Yeah. So, as far as your parents, how did they find Boston? Because you're right, it is a wonderful place, and there is a tremendous amount of culture there.
Yeah. My mom, she grew up between Connecticut and kind of Beverly Hills. Her father was an actor, so he's Wendell Corey. He actually has a star on the Hollywood Boulevard, and so she had quite an interesting upbringing kind of in that universe. My dad was from Western Mass, and my parents ended up meeting out there because my mom's grandparents owned a farm in that region, and so they connected out there, and then advertising actually brought my dad down to the Boston area originally. He's an ad guy before me and still is.
Aha. So that's how you found that game.
It wasn't pure nepotism, actually. You know, I avoided that hard. So I went and was stubborn to make my own way, and you know, eventually. But we definitely have collaborated and worked together, and have been. Boston's a very tight knit advertising community.
What does he do? What is his specific area of focus?
Yeah, really more kind of high level branding, brand concepting.
Okay, and is he with one of the advertising agencies that we might know?
He started his own firm in '89 and still runs it to this day. So yeah, Hollister and Company.
Hollister and Company, which makes sense.
Yeah, during Christmas he'll get some letters from people mistaking him for the Hollister store, asking to send some jeans for Christmas.
Yeah. And no, we will not send.
We will not be sending any jeans, unfortunately.
All right, so we've got an actor in the line. We've got an ad man in the line. What else? What other professions are in the lineage?
Yeah, absolutely. I always give a lot of credit to my mom in that when I was in high school, she went back and completed her undergrad. And then when I was in college, she did her doctorate, and she's a psychologist. So she really began a career in psychology close to her, late 40s, early 50s, and now has been practicing for 20 years. So anybody who ever thinks it's too late or that ship has sailed, I'll always give them that little story and say, you still got time.
Yeah. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Please congratulate her on my behalf.
Yeah, absolutely. I do every time I see her.
Yeah. She. What did that teach you? Obviously, you forecast that, so you tell people that they should believe in that. But you would imagine she was done with most of her parenting, and then she throws this big, huge last lesson on you, or post lesson.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of look at it in retrospect. One of the things that I take away from it is just especially in an entrepreneurial sense, that you cannot be afraid of the unknown, of having to reinvent yourself or what you're doing as a company, and be up for the challenge.
Excellent. Okay, so you take that to work every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. And so we've got the psychologist mother, who wasn't that until recently, but whatever. We've got the ad man father. What did you learn from him besides, how to be an ad man?
He was a great kind of mentor. I used to go as a kid and hang out in the agencies and be in that environment and see how business occurred, but also just the dedication and the discipline that is required to be successful, especially in something that you're doing for yourself. When he stepped out into his own agency, I can even remember once having this car ride as a child where they broke it down that this is what was going to occur, and there was a lot of unknowns to it, and really understanding that, hey, if you are committed and you do bring discipline, you can be successful in these endeavors.
Creative and have discipline.
Yes, discipline being the big one. Creativity can get you in a lot of trouble. Ideas come out of everywhere. It's the discipline to pick the right ones and execute on them that is the important part.
Fair enough. All right, these are good lessons. So that's how you get into high school and you start doing whatever you started to do. So what were your interests in high school?
In high school, I definitely kind of very eclectic interest, from playing football to being big on the ski team. Also really got exposed to music at that time and enjoyed a lot of live music, and had a very enjoyable high school experience as well as college. And in college studied behavioral science, which I truly loved and found it really important because I was fully engaged and immersed in what was going on. So, learning about an interesting topic, also learning how to learn, but there were a lot of skills that I found useful in the business world as you're understanding relationships and dealing with peoples and interactions and overcoming challenges that behavioral science degree had a lot of benefit to me in my ongoing business career.
Okay, all right, but that was in college, though, right? Yeah. So you bring up sports, you bring up music, and as far as football is concerned, I'm looking at you, and I'm thinking that you must have been a running back or a defensive back.
Yep. A running back and defensive end. Yeah. So,
Wait, you said defensive end, though.
yeah, we weren't very big, so I wasn't spending a lot of time on that, but I would come in there every once in a while, but mainly on the running side of the ball.
All right, fair enough. And then as far as ski team was concerned, what was your specialty?
So at that time, it was interesting. It was kind of a club sport to our high school. So the gym teacher was the de facto coach, but she couldn't ski. I was probably one of the top skiers, so I was essentially the coach of the ski team. And we would go to this little bump in Massachusetts called Blue Hills, and it was just slalom for the season, and then at states we would run GS as well.
Okay. So were you pushed into leadership? Was that your first brush with leadership?
I had an interesting experience probably even before that. One of the other kind of big formational components to my high school years was I did 2 NOLS courses. So I spent a month in Alaska backpacking. I was only 14. I was the youngest person to ever actually do one of the Alaska expeditions. And that kind of being in that self-sufficient, away from anything. We were away, trailheads. We had sat phones. If anything went wrong, you had a can of pepper spray and a sat phone, and you were hoping from there. And then I did another one in Washington State. That was a mountaineering course, extremely challenging. Just your packs are pushing 70 pounds on re-ration and walking on crampons over glaciers. But again, being in that environment of having to really depend on each other, work together, collaborate, and successfully, move yourself through the wilderness to these different re-ration and eventually extraction points was a very tremendous experience for me, and kind of learning not only leadership but also cooperation. And then I also got the opportunity to do a ski racing camp in Austria. And just, I think anytime a young person's exposed to new, nationalities and new places, it just helps to broaden their experience and their viewpoints.
Yeah, without question. Chris Crane talked about that, going to Europe as a young guy. I understand the ski camp thing, but this backpacking situation, where did this come from? How did you come upon that?
I always just personally had a lot of attraction to the outdoors, and it kind of started with skiing, but had gotten into a little bit of climbing in my early high school years, and was doing some the rock gyms were kind of popping up around Boston, and someone had in my family had kind of recommended this as an alternative to Outward Bound, because they said it was more about developing your skills and less about a kind of survivalistic kind of opportunity. So a way to really tap into that desire to be immersed in outdoors and challenge myself. And
okay. All right. So you do appreciate a good challenge. It's
always. The mountaineering is about the most punishing challenge that you can take. It is pure mental. I had an interesting experience. Somebody who had was in the Marines, had gone through basic training, was a Marine, and unfortunately the mountaineering course was too much for him. He had to be picked up and evac'd out of it.
Really?
Yeah.
One would not expect that.
One would not expect that.
All right, so it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. What I really put that on is it's about your personal ability to deal with the mental challenge. If there's not somebody there kind of driving you on, can you motivate yourself to drive on?
There is no drill instructor.
There is no drill instructor.
All right. Okay. So then we got that, and we kind of go up to Vermont. Was it UVM or another school?
It was not. It was Green Mountain College, so small private school south of maybe about 30 minutes. So we spent a fair amount of time up in Burlington, a lot of time at Killington skiing. Was a ski instructor at Killington. and again got into the kind of behavioral science studies at that point. And it was a great environment. I enjoyed the smaller school, knowing everybody, and still have great friends and relationships from that time.
Right. And you graduate with your behavioral science degree, and of course that led to your first job being
in telecom. So I quickly kind of realized that the behavioral science path was maybe not the financial reward that I was also plotting in my future. So looked at a course correction, and really was just looking for a jumping in point into the business world. And actually did a little temping before that, and had gotten a couple offers, but kept trying to push through to a real opportunity. Had found a marketing coordinator job at a telecom publisher. And interestingly, I came on and quickly became the director of events, and was handed a China Telecom and India Telecom conference to organize and put on by myself at the age of 24. So a trial by fire, no question.
And how did those go, respectively?
Success. Everything was went off without a hitch, and great events. And at that time, China was kind of just opening up. We're talking late 90s. I remember doing the event in DC, and not only was there a lot of business interest, but the CIA was floating around and other governmental agencies. So a cool experience as kind of a first foray into the business world, to be working in emerging markets and international business.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so they gave you all of this responsibility right off the bat. You're 24. You're running stuff, right? And why was that? Why was there a change needed, and when did it occur?
That one, had a very challenging owner, I will say, and was tough. You learned a lot, but you learned it with a lot of spit and profanity coming your direction. So the .com started to get rolling, and kind of I saw that and said, hey, this is something I want to be a part of, and want to get in here, and got an opportunity to join what was headhunter.net at the time, and eventually acquired by Career Builder, and jumped in and got to kind of ride the .com wave all the way from, hey, here's a massive marketing budget, you need to spend it in 30 days, to watching people get fired every Friday and kind of heads roll. So from the backside over the top and down the other side.
Yeah, we haven't really done a lot of this. Those kind of mid to late 90s marketing parties in tech. Yeah. Just give us a flavor.
Well, there definitely was money to be thrown around, and they weren't quite as strict on financial use of funds, and so. Good times, and advertising is not a dull place to work either. So
But just to stay there for a second, around that time, I was at a party with Elvis Costello, Ben Stein, and Philip Seymour Hoffman.
That's a good crew. I wish I could have been there with you. Unfortunately, we'll be missing Philip.
Yeah, absolutely, certainly. But my point is, the party was small enough that I met all three of those people.
Yeah, that's a nice kind of party to be at, right? Well, and I remember them all. I remember, stadiums, people taking down stadiums and hiring bands and just putting on these full production events, and to bringing in high level, kind of talent, and having a nice little cozy get together, right?
Yeah. No, there's probably like 300 people there, but you don't need Elvis Costello for 300 people.
Hey, you can work your way through that crowd to get to Elvis.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that you're doing that. Headhunter.net, gets bought by Career Builder. The whole thing just falls apart. All sorts of, high percentages of people getting cut.
Carnage was occurring. Yes, we used to give the dead man walking salute on Fridays as you got called to the office. Yeah.
and that was what it was.
Yeah, and then it really devolved into foosball at that point. You know, the sales department and people were playing foosball, waiting for the axe to come down. It was a pretty interesting thing to witness.
Yeah. Well, there was nothing to sell.
Yeah, there was nothing to sell. That's it.
So, which should have been our first thought.
Yeah. The flag. That'll be a lesson in responsive reaction.
Indeed, there's the behavioral science. Yeah. All right. So you're doing that, and then is that when you said, okay, it's time for advertising?
That was it. So that was where the nepotism card got played, and got an introduction into another agency, not directly with my dad, because I always wanted to keep a little layer of separation there, and very very independent, self identity. And then got into the ad world and had some great experiences with that and working with major brands. That one was the first one was a real boutique design, and we did Puma and Stride Right and other New England School of Law. So just in there seeing these international brands, how they operate, the brand managers and VPs of marketing, and getting a great kind of exposure, continued exposure.
Yeah. What did you learn about how to satisfy the client?
Well, that's kind of where it all comes in. When you're an account manager, or salesperson or project manager, you're in this place where you're stuck between the client and your own team performing the work, and balancing both sides of that and keeping everybody happy is where the art lies, and it takes some learning. There's no question.
What is the key? Would you say as you went, what did you discover was the utmost thing to bring to the table on both sides?
I think one is not to proceed too quickly. Often, the overpromise, under-deliver kind of issue with clients. So, you're really setting client expectations that your team can meet is critical. So, that communication, that your team is on point with what you're going to convey to that client so everybody can achieve what they're trying to and be successful. That was really the kind of critical lesson. I can remember running out there as the eager, young kind of sales guy. Oh, we can do it 100%. Oh, we got it covered, right? And then you get back to the creative team or the development team, and they're like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, we've got 7 other projects. How are we going to fit that in here? And hey, we'll get it done. So turning desire into fact type of thing. Yes, that's it. You've got to reconcile what you want to do with that client to what your company can perform.
All right, fair enough. So you're working with Puma. What's the key to a good campaign? Let's talk about the work.
Yeah. That is understanding client needs and a strong creative team. I mean, you're at that point, your team is the work, and you've got to have a strong team.
All right. So, and we've spoken with Trent, and you have a pretty strong team here. I was surprised that you have more than just Trent, because I see Trent everywhere. So, you could probably just send him out and be fine.
He is the road warrior, and I value every minute he pounds that pavement. So, and really appreciate it, and have got, kind of building the team here has been one of the most critical components for us. The human capital in this space is not plentiful. Those who can operate on the commercial scale in regulated markets and have the appropriate backgrounds, that's really been a challenge and a part of our developmental process. Originally, we tapped from some of the developing regulated cannabis market. Now I've shifted to recruiting more from horticultural, scientific backgrounds, degreed professionals. We can, if you don't have the exposure, can help you understand the nuances of cannabis, but that experience is much more valuable in a professional service setting than having grown in your basement and scaled that up into a regulated market.
Yes, a master grower, so to speak.
The master grower, yes.
All right, so let's dot the line, though, from you sitting in that advertising office to you sitting in this cannabis office. How did all of this start?
So you're gonna have a few moves in there. So I'd kind of had good success in the advertising world, but felt the entrepreneurial draw. Really wanted to go cut my teeth on something of my own, and had a real developing interest in fitness at the time, and was doing CrossFit, and was thinking about opening one of these CrossFit gyms. My wife coincidentally had an opportunity to relocate to Colorado, and we'd always wanted to experience living somewhere else. We got out here, and then she also decided she was ready to start having a family. So we just moved 2,000 miles away from our whole support network and spit out 2 kids. And as I investigated kind of the ownership in the fitness world, again discovered that really financially that was not going to be providing what I was looking for. So had begun exploring other opportunities, and just had a coincidental meeting with Ellis Smith, my founding partner in this endeavor and our previous endeavor, the Village Green Society. And at that time, it was 2009. The Cole memo had come out. Dispensaries were popping up everywhere. I'm thinking, okay, I've got a business background, and I understand how to operate. And I met the person who provided the knowledge from a horticultural background. And for me, that's kind of always whether I've been in web development with programmers or advertising with creatives, it's kind of the two-headed monster. So I had that person that could deliver there. We ended up being part of the kind of vertical integration carnage that occurred in Colorado.
Yeah. Well, let's take those steps here now that we've gotten to Colorado. It's fascinating that it was your wife that brought you here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in a large part me. I wanted to ski. I was pushing for the mountains, but she brought the cornerstone job that made the move happen.
All right. Well, so congratulations and thank you.
I call her my seed mama. So yes.
Yeah, not quite your mama, but
yeah. She provided some of the assistance in seed capital, to help the entrepreneurial endeavors. Yes.
Indeed. All right. So then, how did you meet Ellis? You said I happened to meet Ellis.
So we were. I was. Kind of going in, these dispensaries were popping up, and it was, like, oh my God, we just kind of found ourselves in Amsterdam. What happened here, right? And I was in one, and had saw Ellis in there, talking to the store owner, and kind of over listening to the conversation, understood, he was exploring business opportunities. I waited outside for him and introduced myself as he came out, and set up a lunch with him kind of subsequent to that. And we sat down and found that, not only did we both have interest in entrepreneurial drive for this industry, but he also has he was made ski films previously, and has a big mountaineering background as well. So right away there was a great fit between the two of us.
It's a perfect fit. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So and we've been going on 6 years together as business associates and partners.
Indeed, work husbands.
Yes, that we do call that. That is a term we use as well. So sometimes you'll see your work husband more than your wife.
Which you shouldn't do.
No, it happens though, unfortunately.
All right. So then, how long did it take from that lunch meeting to actually getting the dispensary up and going, and how did that whole thing take place?
So Ellis and I were working with one other individual at the time on what we felt was going to be able to be a wholesale cultivation operation. And we had the building identified, and we're putting that all together. And then 30 days prior to them doing the licensing, they said, nope, everybody's got to be vertically integrated. If you're not, you need to find a dispensary partner or a grow partner. So that set everybody off into this mad chase of shotgun weddings, as people like to call them. We had found a group with a dispensary, a good location right in Boulder. They unfortunately already had a grow, so we had to walk off of what we were pursuing, and the grow was located down in Denver. But they had 2 members. We had 3, and the 5 came together for the first wave of regulated cannabis dispensaries in 2010. So the Village Green Society, and right there in Boulder, and I think at the time there was 50 dispensaries operating in Boulder, and was exciting and fun, and got to go through the growing pains with everybody, and the green rush of that first wave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was that first wave, and there were those 50 dispensaries in Boulder. How did that all kind of uncouple from your point of view? We've talked about it with others.
It's maybe for reasons of just not professional backgrounds or whatever, but I saw, the hyper competitive pricing came into the market, and everybody just was trying to drive their competitor out. So we found ourselves in price wars for no good reasons. Nobody can keep their shelves full, but we're in price wars driving price down and couponing like mad. The Westward and Rooster couldn't have been happier. These magazines all of a sudden found a whole new channel vertical that was just pouring capital on them. But it was kind of an odd dichotomy. It's like, wait a minute here. Nobody can grow enough product. Why are we dropping prices and selling everything on sale?
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. And so price wars, but then there was also some. The city of Boulder wasn't necessarily too pleased with the situation itself.
No, and so they went on trying to reel in kind of it jumped out of the box in ways that nobody could have foreseen, and they really went through a lot of efforts to rein in, either through zoning and, kind of in that first wave, or through the ongoing operation. I think, all communities kind of had to all of a sudden deal with this new element and figure out how to handle it. I do think, Boulder ultimately did a good job, and, it was a tough challenge, no question. Here was something that an industry that was operating, with all of its, conflicts between the state and federal, and even the local and the state, and they had to figure out a way to deal with it, and create a regulatory framework, and I give them credit for being progressive and saying, hey, we're going to figure out a way. The community has spoken, they want this here, and we're going to make it happen.
And what did that mean for your business?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. We had some challenges in that business, in that we had 5 owners. So anytime you kind of get yourself in an ownership group that big, conflicts are bound to arise. So ultimately for Alice and I, it was more about the ownership group and what we felt we could accomplish with our know-how and skills. So we, in 2013, got out of the dispensary and started the consulting company. Yeah.
All right. So American Cannabis Company, was that the name right off the bat, or did you go through a couple different iterations?
So American Cannabis Consulting was the name right off the bat, and we came to that really quickly. And the thinking at the time was, we really want to put the stake in the ground to say, hey, this is what we're doing, and we don't want to be trying to play games and misrepresent. And we felt at that time that the industry had progressed for far enough that it was ready for service providers and ancillary providers and products. So we wanted to not mince words. Hey, American Cannabis Consulting, this is what we do, and make a name for ourselves.
And so you off and running, and did you take as one of your first clients your old partners, or how did you get the business going from a client perspective?
Yep. So our first client was LeConte's here in Denver, which is OPEN, associated with OPEN, so part of OPEN, and started the company with that relationship. And then, we really expected that, we'll be doing a lot of work here in Colorado, and this will be our area of focus. coincidentally, at that same time, a lot of these states started to take down these merit-based application processes, and there was a huge knowledge vacuum. Nobody really understood how to operate these businesses, what they were about. So we got into working on these state applications, and Connecticut was the first one we did, and Mass was right on the heels of that. We were successful in both states, securing licenses for clients, and really started to see that, hey, this was going to be probably the most rapidly growing component of the market, and, changed course and adjusted to really meet the needs of these emerging markets.
And I mean, you're a Massachusetts guy, and Massachusetts is extremely close to Connecticut for those who don't know. Yeah. And but how did you come upon these people that you could help with these licenses?
So that's where the advertising background comes back in. I had performed some good work in the web arena and my SEO, and was ranking at the top of the search rank. So, there was, nobody, and probably still only a handful of really qualified consultants. And so if you were on that list, it didn't take hard for them to call 10, and everybody got a call. So not a lot of competition there in the kind of early waves.
Right. And I mean, there's not a lot of, no, there's a tremendous amount of competition now.
Now it's changed. I see a new consulting firm pop up, every other day, but we've have the advantage of a 2-year running head start, and really perfecting how we approach things and our processes, and getting the team together. So, comfortable with our position, and they'll keep popping up, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, and the new ones, that's all well and good. From my perspective, I see right around 4 or 5.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, you're a handful of those who really can deliver, especially where these new states are trending. You take New York, for instance, 5 licenses, 19 million people. The size and scale of these projects is exponential to what we dealt with here in Colorado.
Yeah, and I do want to get into state-specific stuff. We did that with Trent as well. More of a big picture thing with you. But what are you learning as a business owner and a leader from this this rapid application process?
Well, it's funny. One of my clients just recently said, "Oh, why do you keep doing this to yourselves?" And I said, it's a challenge. It's any kind of deadline oriented, hyper competitive. I think probably the casino licenses are similar. It takes rallying a lot of resources and guys burning long hours. I think some of the things we've learned is that sometimes you've got to have opportunities to let the foot off the gas a little bit. You need to really stay focused in terms of what you're putting on your plate, especially in this industry. We'll get 10 software companies that call us a week, 20 people that want to do JVs, and if you kind of get yourself distracted and running down these paths, then you're going to jeopardize your ability to execute on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And that's back in the that another advertising was.
That's it. Yeah. Focus and discipline.
Focus and discipline. Okay, so you've got this rapid application process thing going. It feels like you've got the rhythm, but that is not only the only thing that you guys do here.
No, absolutely. And part of the development of the company's service offerings has matched the life cycle of these companies. So as we secured these applications, then we got into the design and deployment side. So, had to bring in resources that could handle the design of these facilities, had the resources to do the training on the cultivation, then understanding how big the products component was for these clients and how we could really deliver them a value-add solution around their CapEx, which is massive and just getting bigger as these states kind of issue fewer licenses. So as we started to become aware of these different opportunities within these clients, and the clients are it's a very tight relationship. You're working very closely with these people, and really understanding that, hey, we have the ability to service and help our clients in other areas besides just the consulting.
Okay, so it's not just consulting and it's not just application processes, but now you're really getting into the the X's and O's of running these businesses. And so then now is when I will ask you, as you go state by state and you see various different teams with various different expertise, and you guys are lending insight. What are you seeing along the way? What is the similarity between New York and Maryland, or Hawaii and Nevada?
It's interesting. From going 2 years ago, the first client we worked with in Mass. She was a doctor, a breast cancer survivor, and really an advocate, and had gotten a lot of kind of encouragement from her community to pursue one of these licenses. And so, it started out with people who I think had a connection in some way to the industry. Now, as it develops, it's really become a capitalistic opportunity endeavor. So we're seeing business people from all types of backgrounds, very savvy, successful people who have multi-million, billion-dollar companies in other spaces, and view this as a developing opportunity, which it definitely is. And we're $60 billion, $4 billion into a $60 billion existing market. So not very often that you're getting to convert an existing market rather than create one.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's fascinating. So you're dealing with all of these different personalities, and what is it though? What are the states learning from one another? If the business owners are learning from you, are the states, as they outline what they're looking for, are they learning from each other? I know that New York certainly hasn't, and I can say that because I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah. It's interesting because we really have micro markets within almost a micro market at that. Every state is different. I think it's still very challenging for these Department of Health and these regulators to identify what are the right paths. Are these extract oil only markets the best option in terms of medical efficacy, and understanding what are the true risk and what aren't risk. I think it has been very advantageous for those states coming on now to be able to go back and look at some of the mistakes and where things have gone awry for states looking to bring these programs on. And they're getting better in the processes. The processes are getting much more refined in terms of states hitting their deadlines for getting applications out and getting their announcements out. So I do feel that we've seen a lot of improvement at both the state level and at the operator level.
Yeah, good. But I'm just going to keep hammering on New York, and as a Massachusetts guy, you probably won't have an issue with that, right? Well, let me get to my point. So what I want to know from you is, you've got a gigantic state with a tremendous number of potential patients, and so I want to get your understanding on the list of ailments that's acceptable for medical cannabis, and Illinois also not a lot of licenses, a tremendous amount of patients, and then you've got states that are either on one side or the other. What is your take on number of patients versus number of licenses?
Well, Illinois is in a very challenging position in that I think the fingerprinting requirement for patients is a little bit cumbersome and may slow the patient adoption that was going to occur. I do see a little bit of a chasm between what the operators' expectations are, what the state's expectations are, and even what the reality are for the patients, and really having a good sense of how are we getting these patients into this treatment protocol or, being serviced by the medical marijuana industry, and how do we get these operators in control? So they're dealing with a lot of different variables and, having to learn on the go. New York, for instance, I think, it's not uncommon to see states want to be conservative as they roll these programs out and want to, really have control over what's going on. We have such a long history of having the opposite stance on cannabis. So now, looking at, okay, how am I now making this part of our state's health system and economy presents, a lot of challenges. So, those who probably start with very limited, we would expect that they'll expand their number of licenses as they get comfortable. They'll expand the conditions, and I think if you look at the states that have come before, Colorado, for instance, that is, kind of what occurred. We started with a caregiver, we transitioned into the regulated market, conditions expanded, we adopted rec, then we brought on the wholesale. So it's, as the state and everybody becomes more comfortable, then progress continues to occur.
Okay. And so you do see that. And it's basically once the governor, realize the sky isn't falling, I'm open-minded.
That would be it. The sky isn't falling. All your economic indicators are positive. So I think here in Colorado, violent crime is down, domestic assault is down, traffic accidents are down, applications to the universities that are a record high, ski towns had record seasons last year, so not too many ugly things to point at there.
Right, yeah, and almost none.
Almost none. I think probably the one thing I would put out there is, one of the biggest challenges has obviously been the edibles portion of the market, and having newcomers understand what can these products do to me, what are the potential reactions, and how do I consume these. So but then we're getting into a place of education and awareness, and that's where I think you get better outcomes, because people aren't getting this from Joe whoever without any sense of what's in it, and just kind of opening the box of surprise to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's that continues to be the the guiding light, and the best thing that legal cannabis has going for it is that it's legal and regulated.
Yes, and I saw. Even the development from here at Colorado at the state level, last year their campaign kind of for the industry was "Don't be a lab rat," right? And they didn't want, they were saying to teenagers, which is correct, and I agree with this, hey, your brain is not fully developed, and we don't understand exactly what cannabis is doing to an adolescent brain, which is an important message. And teen use is actually down in Colorado. It's another statistic, that people would probably not think would be the case. This year, it's, I'm not going to name it exactly, but it's in the vein of need to know. Yeah. And, if you're coming to Colorado and going to consume these products, there's some important things that you should know. And, let's help you, be a responsible consumer.
Start low and go slow.
Yeah, start low and go slow. I saw somebody, an edible brand, it said the rookie pack.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was 10 milligram increments, and wait 2 hours.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And as far as teen use being down, once it's legal, meaning once it's not illegal, there's no interest. There's no reason for me to do it if everyone can do it.
I think you do kind of pull away from that rebel, and there's no longer that place to say, if you're looking to be that rebel guy, it's not the thing that's going to make you a rebel.
Yeah, I feel like we're about the same age. In high school, when I started to drink, I would imagine you started to drink. Why were we doing that? Because we weren't supposed to.
Yeah, we weren't supposed to, and we wanted to be big guys, be adults, right?
That's exactly it. So there's your teen use being down. So all right. So now here's the legal cannabis market. Here it comes all across the country. We've got as many medical states as we do. I think it's 23, 24, 25 coming. We've got more rec states coming online as well. From where you sit at American Cannabis Company. And quick tangent, when did we make that change?
We made that change September 28th officially of 2014.
And it's because we don't just consult anymore.
That's exactly right. We needed something that was more all-encompassing of our service offerings.
Yeah. So, from your perch, where do you see this thing going? Meaning, give us the big prognostications. Nevada is going to be the headquarters of legal cannabis. As far as those from Nevada will tell you that.
Yeah, they definitely want to be, and even right at the state representative level, they're out there carrying that mantle hard. Some of the things that I see occurring is probably a division in the rec and the pharma side. So we'll have the more pharmaceutical companies coming in, really looking at segmenting the cannabinoids, reconstituting them into targeted medicines, and really developing that end of what medicinal, more targeted medicines can we create from this extensive cannabinoid profile. Then the rec side, just societally becoming more comfortable that, hey, this is not a destructive component and a reasonable adult use alternative for alcohol or just however people want to consume, and states will become more comfortable with that, and we'll probably see the microbrew kind of replication on some levels, and your Budweisers and Coors and big guys come out as well.
So you who are an ad guy at heart, yeah. I've heard that comparison before, yeah. That we're going to have craft brews and craft distilleries, and we're going to have big Budweiser and everything like that. Isn't the cannabis consumer a different consumer than the beer consumer? Who's going to want Anheuser-Busch? Who's going to want Budweiser of weed?
Well, it's funny, even within markets, Colorado's a very price-driven market, whereas California is a very quality market. And already, and its market factors have contributed to this, but there's a lot of people that are out there looking for that $100 ounce. So you've got your Budweiser and you've got your craft brewers already.
So that you are seeing that from a pricing perspective. From
a pricing perspective, and also, when you look at your market segment, you're ranging anywhere, let's call it 21 to 60 plus. 55 plus is one of the fastest expanding segments of the market. So your young guys most likely will be shopping on price, and your those at the other end of the spectrum will be shopping on quality and other factors, and we'll have a kind of traditional market.
And so all of these things that you're talking about, this, the onset of a little bit more of a pharma approach, the onset of a little bit of a more, kind of big breweries and craft breweries. What is that? 1 year, next week, 1 year, 5 years? What do you think?
Well, I think the pharma component, both of them are, in full swing, but inhibited still by what's going on at the federal level, obviously, and putting a peg on that one. I hope it's less than 5 years. So,
and you're talking federally,
yeah.
All right. But you see the gears running as far as those other components of the marketplace.
I mean, 100%. I mean, if you're, the personalities, Hollywood and music that now want to associate themselves to these brands, the businesses that are now exploring. I look at, kind of the succession of shows that we've gone to and the quality of the exhibitors, and now all of a sudden you're seeing, large, established 30-year pharma companies saying, hey, we've got good solutions for this market. We're comfortable selling into this vertical, and we're going to be. So, that raises the quality of what everybody's doing. And that's a big part of what, we're working on right now on the cultivation side is, consumer protection is big. So we use an organic-based cultivation. But how are we creating sustainable operations, reducing water, reducing power, reducing operator error, pesticide outbreak, and creating a legitimate product that will meet stringent consumer testing and be a safe product for the market?
So you're one step ahead.
We're trying. You know, I had some good feedback from somebody that was, you know, working with a few others saying, well, you guys are one step plus ahead. So I said, well, thank you very much. Don't be afraid to share that with our client, and you know, you can speak that one loudly. But
yeah, feel free to tweet it, right?
Yeah, and you know, we're also, I think, you know, we've had some benefit of operating up in Canada, where they're a little bit ahead of us. Health Canada has their testing regimen in place, and really being able to help. You know, establish an operation up there that is passing Health Canada's very stringent testing, where a lot of LPs are failing, and you know, kind of furthering our proof of concept around our organic cultivation methodologies at a commercial scale.
How far do you want to get into that? Who are you working with?
I don't mind disclosing that one up there is Organigram. So and They are very progressive and really doing a tremendous job in terms of how they're developing their operations, the technology they're adopting, and how they're looking at this market.
All right, it's getting time to be final questions. So I'm going to ask you the two final questions that we usually ask. But I was in a meeting the other day, and I thought of a third final question, which I guess I will ask first.
All right, third becomes number one. Bring it on.
Well, because we don't know how important it is yet. You see what I'm saying?
All right.
We know what the other ones are. This new last question is there is a soundtrack to your life, whether you like it or not. Yeah. And so what I would love for you to do is name one of the songs that is certainly on your soundtrack, the soundtrack of your life.
Oh, you're coming at me with a curveball right there. Let's see here. I'm going to have to give me 10 seconds on that one. Soundtrack of the life.
All right, I'm gonna let you think about it.
Think about that one.
Yeah, and that's the first time I've asked it.
There's so much music, it's hard to.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. So let's come back to that, and you'll see how it does come back in. The other two questions are: what has most surprised you in cannabis, and what has most surprised you in life? So we're still sticking on the life thing, but what has most surprised you in cannabis?
You know, I think just seeing this industry just spring up, and you know, having gone through the .com and understanding how rapidly things can move, to see something that could even occur more rapidly with more intensity has just been, you know, jaw-dropping, and I don't foresee that slowing down anytime soon. So, you know, we're trying to build a massive industry here at a very quick pace, and it's pretty amazing to witness.
And you're certainly a big part of it, so thank you for your work there. As far as what's most surprised you in life, is that an easier question than the soundtrack?
You know, I would say, and this is going to go for a lot of people, you know, kids, you know, just how awesome kids are. And I love being a father. I love playing with my kids and, you know, my family, my wife, and just the reward I get out of that end of my life.
Fair enough. And that is an answer that we have heard before, because, of course, it has to be. Yeah. So finally now, I guess, third does become third again.
Yeah. We'll go with going down the road feeling bad, but not bad in a negative way, just badass.
and I believe that's how it's originally intentioned.
I do think so, yeah.
And that's a Grateful Dead song, Corey.
That's a Grateful Dead. That's actually a Woody Guthrie song originally.
Oh, my God, forgive me. You're right. Yeah. Best known, though, as a Grateful Dead song.
Best known as a Grateful Dead song. I was exposed to it originally as a Grateful Dead song as well, even though I did happen to grow up with Arlo Guthrie and his kids in the Berkshires.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Oddly enough, my mom, who, you know, had the Hollywood experience, Arlo's wife, she was from Malibu. They grew up together in California and both ended up moving to this very small town in western Massachusetts, and she had married Arlo. And when we were kids, you know, we played around his kind of compound house, and, you know, still friends with, you know, connected to Sarah Lee Guthrie, one of his daughters, and she's got a little folk group now with a guy named Jeremy Iron. And my parents still get out there, and they're all out there still in Western Mass doing the Alice's restaurant and all that.
I was going to just say it. So come right in. It's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad track.
There it is. Laid it down as is.
Corey Hollister, thanks so much.
I appreciate it, Seth. It was a pleasure.
Corey Hollister. And we went on to have a much longer conversation about Arlo Guthrie, and that was intensely enjoyable. As I started to say, just walk right in. It's around the back, just a half mile from the railroad track. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant.